I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
You know, Gene, I still can't believe that the epic adventure Sorcerer was so completely overlooked. Now, here was a large-scale, big-budget action picture, lots of fun. It starred Academy Award nominee Roy Scheider. It was made by Academy Award winner William Friedkin, the director of The Exorcist and The French Connection, and this movie died a quick death at the box office. The scene we have here is maybe the most astonishing scene in the whole film. It's a combination of desperation, suspense, and great special effects as Roy Scheider and his partners try to maneuver a giant truck filled with nitroglycerin through a hazardous jungle and across a suspension bridge. Sort of a tricky situation. We talked about the special effects. That last shot had some special effects in it, at least 3. The guy in the foreground is really there. The truck in the background is a real big model, and then the rain is kind of laid on top of it. So this movie really does have great special effects, but it didn't help it. You can see there that The Sorcerer is on a level way above most action pictures. The movie was a labor of love for director William Friedkin. He wanted to show human behavior at its extremes, men determined to complete a life-or-death mission against all odds and discovering their own limits at the same time. The jungle scenes, the rain and flood, the fire and catastrophe, are among the most exciting movie scenes I've ever seen, but for some reason, the studio opened this movie with a lousy advertising campaign at the last minute. It had no faith in the picture's future. They pulled it out of the lousy theaters they got it into after a few weeks. Sorcerer certainly qualifies as one of the great lost films of the 1970s.
You're right about that. I don't share your enthusiasm for the film. I talked to the director, Bill Friedkin, about it. The thing that he thinks is wrong is what I think is wrong. The characters seem to me to be a little cold. We notice the special effects, they're so powerful, more than the people in the truck. So we're more worried about the truck than the people. That aside, I still share your amazement. This was a very expensive film, $24 million to make. I'm amazed that it was just dispatched.
So you didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like the picture, but a $20 million picture has to make $45 or $50 million to break even. This one didn't come anywhere close to that. It probably, if it made $5 million, it was lucky. You'd think it could make more than that. Just by opening in the first week, people stumbling into the wrong theater looking for Bruce Lee should have made more than that. But the studio simply rejected it. They didn't support it. They didn't tell people it was coming. They didn't care about it.
You had the answer there when you said the studio.
Right.
This picture actually was made by 2 studios, Paramount Pictures and Universal Pictures. What happened is, I think each studio thought the other guy was going to handle it. Nobody cared enough about it as a sole project of their own. It was dropped in between them.
Okay, so what do people do when a picture like this comes out? How do they know it's good, in my opinion, or if it's bad in your opinion? How do they know about it before the picture closes?
Well, in this case, they had to find it out on their own, because what happened is, here was a picture that also had a very bad title. It was called Sorcerer. Now, Bill Friedkin had made a picture called The Exorcist. Sorcerer sounds like it's another Exorcist picture. Well, there had been so many Exorcist films right after The Exorcist that when this guy came out, people were, 1, fed up with it, or 2, they went hopeful that it was another exorcism kind of film. They got there and they saw somebody in a truck. They said, "Where's the devil?" So this film was confusing for that reason. What people should do in something like this is, well, they better read your newspaper.
Read the critics, right.
Real quick. In 1950, 7 Boston area criminals pulled off what was then the biggest cash robbery in American history. More than $2.5 million taken from the safe of the Brinks Armored Car Company. Now, when we hear about a crime like that, we expect it to be a razzle-dazzle affair pulled off by criminal masterminds. Well, in fact, the Brinks robbery was a simple, old-fashioned heist because the Brinks company had lousy security for its corporate safe. The thieves, a bunch of small-timers, were simply walking in and they took the money. How small-time were the crooks? Well, in the film's first robbery, Peter Falk leads his buddies on a safe-cracking job inside a meat-packing house.
In there!
Nobody in here but us chickens. Falk eventually beats that rap, and emboldened, he and his buddies then knock off a couple of Brinks trucks on the street. And that proves to be so easy, he then conceives of a plan to rob the main Brinks safe. He talks about his dream robbery with his wife, Jenna Rollins, over dinner in a restaurant.
And it's screaming at me through the walls. It's yelling, "Hey, Tony, come in and grab me. Get me out of here." Well, I'm going in, and I'm going to get it out. The Brinks Bobby. Brinks.
He's irresistible there. This is a very gentle, often whimsical movie. It's a nostalgia piece about the 50s, a love letter to a more simple time of crime when people weren't getting hurt by crime so much. The Brinks Job is by no means a great film, but I found it charming, well acted, and dedicated to the principle that deep inside most of us, there's a part of us that would really get a kick out of knocking off a bank. I walked out of the theater and I saw a bank sign and I thought about it a little bit.
I'm sure you did. You just want to star in that machine that takes pictures of the robbers.
No.
I'll tell you, this film does have two things that you don't often find in the same film. First of all, the characters are terrific. I mean, they are characters, you know,
Yeah.
the talk, you know, the dialogue, the period and everything. I've never seen Peter Falk do a better job of acting. And at the same time in the film, the director, William Friedkin, makes it very clear how they're going to do the Brinks job. We know how they're going to get in, how they're going to get out, what they're going to do while they're there, and he accomplishes all of that without giving us one of those, you know, in most of these films where you have the chalk talk and the X's and the arrows and everything. He doesn't do that at all.
One thing, people hear the name William Friedkin, they know he directed The French Connection. This is not a rough chase picture. Very gentle, very whimsical. It really works its magic on you,
It's a comedy, it's fun, entertainment.
The next picture is rougher. It's also R-rated and is making a lot of people very uncomfortable. Few films, I think, in recent memory have aroused more ill feeling before they've opened than the new thriller Cruisin. It's about a cop trying to solve a series of violent stabbings in the kinky underground of New York's homosexual community. While the film was being filmed in New York City last year, it was vigorously protested by leaders of the gay community. They claimed that the film was anti-gay and would trigger violence against gays. I don't know about that. All I know is that Cruisin is a pretty bad movie. Al Pacino plays a cop sent undercover to find the killer, but as he sinks deeper into the world of gay leather bars, the whips and chains crowd, he becomes sick of his assignment, tells his detective boss, Paul Sorvino, he wants off the case.
We're up to our ass, and I'm counting on you.
Now, the implication of that very vague scene is that maybe Pacino is worried that he's sort of getting attracted to all the violence that's going on, or that he himself might be discovering and fearing that he's gay. But all of this is just implied. There is very, very little that is stated directly in this movie. Believe it or not, what's not stated directly, who the killer is. At the end of the picture, we don't know for sure. Whoever he is nauseatingly portrayed as brutal. I had to look away from the screen twice while a knife was being plunged into a victim's back repeatedly, blood splashing around. It's disgusting. Cruisin is needlessly violent, needlessly confusing. It is not, really not worth all the notoriety it's getting because of the gay protest.
I think the key word is confusing. One of the things that we go, when we go to see a thriller, one of the things we expect to know at the end of the thriller is who did it and why.
Yeah.
In a character study, one of the things we expect to know at the end of the movie is how the character is changed and why.
You mean the Pacino character who's investigating?
In particular, yes. At the end of Cruisin, you got it right on the head. We don't know who did it and why, and we don't know if the Pacino character is changed and why. The end of the movie is so confusing, so baffling, so annoying, it's almost as if it's a total cop-out. They got into this material, they wanted to engage in this controversy, they wanted to show this character confronting these events, and then at the end of the film it's like they draw away from it and walk away from it and don't want to deliver in terms of the premises that they want to set up.
The most consistent and well-done material within their own world are those stabbings. That they knew they wanted to do that. It's a very sensationalized picture. I think a bad performance by Pacino. He just stares into the camera soulfully. We're supposed to read in something into his eyes. I don't know what. Another bad performance by him. He's had a lot recently. Regarding the protest, I take this position. You know, what any ethnic group or any religious group or any sexual preference group thinks of a picture, that's their business. Italians, I'm sure, did not like The Godfather. Some Italians. That's their problem. It was a great picture. Some gays won't like this film. That's their problem. It's a lousy picture. We just get paid to review the picture. This one is bad.
Okay, so much for Cruisin.
The Deal of the Century is a comedy about the arms race and about the fly-by-night salesmen who sell new and used weapons to anybody who has enough cash. And the movie star Chevy Chase is a guy who's trying to make a living. He'll go anywhere. He'll deal with anybody as long as it means unloading a few more white rifles or a truckload of grenades. In this scene, Chevy has an argument with his partner, played by Gregory Hines. They're disagreeing over Hines' plans to blow up an air show.
We're in a battle to sell this plane, gentlemen. And the enemy is not Moscow. The enemy is Rockwell, Northrop, Lockheed, McDonnell Douglas, Grumman, and the rest of our worthy competitors, foreign and domestic.
Well, that kind of seriousness goes back and forth with those ridiculous commercials, and the cynical humor there, and also in that speech is supposed to bring back, I think, memories of Dr. Strangelove. But this movie is such a mess, it doesn't deserve that comparison. Even in a comedy, I think you got to have a plot that makes sense and characters who have just a little bit of consistency. Deal of the Century is such a complete hodgepodge of styles and stories, such a confusing mixture of strange deals and strange motivations that I finally gave up trying to make any sense out of it at all. The movie was directed by William Friedkin, who's made a lot of good movies like The French Connection and The Exorcist, but he missed the boat this time.
Yes, I think he did. I think this is a case, just what you were referring to, of where you try to do two things, make a serious statement and be funny at the same time, and you wind up doing neither. The Chevy Chase, aren't I a silly goose character, is totally inappropriate for the serious part of the film, which is saying to us that arms salesmen, weapon salesmen have no morals. Now, we know that. So you get a message you already know, and you get a comedy style that is more appropriate for Chevy Chase's vacation movie or something.
Right. Another thing I missed in the movie was the fact that there wasn't a strong plot to pull us through, especially in a comedy. Especially in a comedy, you've got to have something that engages the characters and gives them things they're supposed to do so that we can laugh at the fact that they're not doing them. If the movie is totally anarchic, the comedy doesn't have anything to push against.
If he were just going for that one deal all the way through the movie, that would be the kind of hook you're looking for, but there's a lot of shimmies all the way along the way there. Called The Guardian, about a demonic babysitter who ends up terrorizing a yuppie couple and their baby boy. The babysitter is a descendant of the ancient Druids who worshipped trees. She hopes to sacrifice the child to a tree. First, she has to charm the infant. When the father suspects that the baby is in jeopardy, he confronts the babysitter, much to his wife's disapproval.
I told you I wanted Dr. Klein to see him.
He's perfectly fine. They had a lovely time, actually. What's going on here?
The Guardian was directed by Bill Friedkin of the Exorcist fame, and it too has its supernatural moments as the father tries to rescue the baby from being sacrificed to a giant tree near his home. That's more silly than frightening, and The Guardian also is a routine police thriller after the couple has apparently killed the babysitter with their car.
You saw the tree? The babies.
I don't think this plot works at all. I don't think it's at all important what this woman is going to do with the baby, so much for the story. On the movie level, the visuals aren't compelling either. The big tree is your standard horror movie tree with animated limbs. The couple is boring. The police are standard movie dullards who immediately take the side of the guilty. And the special effects from Bill Friedkin of The Exorcist, well, they're nothing that, shall we say, will turn your head. There's not much to like about The Guardian.
You know, there is one area, though, Gene, where this movie breaks important new ground, and this is something that movie trivia experts
Oh, you're
should
going
study.
to be funny now.
Yes, I am. I'm going to be funny. This is the first horror movie in which a chainsaw is used against a tree.
I understand. I mean, and then it spews out blood and all that.
Now, thank you for that enormous laugh of support.
Well,
there.
it's
My
not that
funny
fun.
remark. You know, it's too bad about William Friedkin, because here is an important director. To Live and Die in L.A. was a very, very good movie.
French Connection, obviously.
The French Connection. His last film, Rampage, which was never released, which I had an opportunity to see, was a true crime story. He was right at the top of his form. This man is making great movies that nobody sees, and then he, you know, probably because he wanted to keep working, made a movie like The Guardian, which will get released and won't do his career or his reputation any good at all.
There really isn't an element here that's compelling. I mean, you know, if the Druids are supposed to be a threat to us, I mean, The Exorcist, it was a real threat to the world. There's nothing going on here. I mean, we laugh at the tree. It just falls apart at every critical step.
Yeah, it's just real hard to get involved with a babysitter that wants to sacrifice a baby to a tree. When we come back, our first movie is Blue Chips, and although the ads make this look like a basketball comedy, it's actually a pretty hard-hitting drama about the world of big-time college basketball. The movie stars Nick Nolte as a coach at a school where he's won 2 national titles, but now he's facing his first losing season. He's always been scrupulously honest in his recruiting practices, but there's pressure on him to produce or lose his job. He talks it over with his friend, the athletic director, played by Boston Celtics legend Bob Cousy.
One, if I break the rules and I get caught, I'll get kicked out of coaching.
And what's the second reason?
I might not get caught.
Nolte goes after some of the top prospects in the country, including a player from Louisiana, played by Shaquille O'Neal.
He ain't no brain surgeon, all right? Took the SAT recently, scored 520 out of a possible 1,600.
520? You get 400 for just spelling your name correctly.
That's it. Messed up on his name.
Another top prospect has a tough mom, played here by Alfre Woodard. She has a good idea of what she'd like out of her son's basketball career.
Miss McRae, do you really want your son to start out life by learning how to bend and break the rules?
And there's a high school star from Indiana, played by Matt Nover, who comes right out and says what he expects in order to sign.
I figure a white blue-chip athlete like myself deserves something extra.
The movie raises some basic questions, such as, since big-time college sports are a multi-million-dollar business, isn't it crazy that the players are supposed to be amateurs? Nolte finds it crazy, all right, but he believes in following the rules, and that interior struggle is what the movie is about. Blue Chips was written by Ron Shelton, who also wrote Bull Durham and White Men Can't Jump. He knows how to make a sports movie convincing, and the director, William Friedkin, makes this psychological battle as suspenseful as the sports battle that I was sort of expecting when I went into the theater.
You know, Roger, I just disagree with you. I thought the film was really lightweight, and in this sense, I thought it was so simple-minded, bare-bones script from Ron Shelton, who's a marvelous writer. This is a 12-year-old script, I'm told. It isn't to have an updated, fresh quality. All it is he's facing the losing season. He has a losing season. He tolerates the recruiting violations, and then he feels badly about him at the end of the movie.
Well, waited for the story. What it's all about. That is the story. Isn't that the story? The pressures. What about all the pressures that are on him? The kinds of people who put the pressures on him. The way those, to me, the most chilling thing about the movie is the way that some of those players walk in with their demands. One wants $30,000 in an athletic bag. Another, a tractor for his dad. Yeah. That's interesting. I
thought that those were sort of cornball movie situations. You and I saw a picture called Hoop Dreams that we reviewed that is so much more sophisticated, so much more real in the playing. This seems so broad and phony.
I agree with you about Hoop Dreams, but at the same time, I think you're comparing apples and oranges.
Yeah, a good movie and a bad movie. Linda Fiorentino is a psychologist with a checkered secret life, and David Caruso plays her former boyfriend, an assistant DA investigating the murder of a wealthy man in Jade, William Friedkin's film that is so convoluted in its story that you end up giving up following it and are merely left feeling voyeuristic as you endure the kinky sex scenes. Here's Fiorentino getting the news about the millionaire's murder.
Oh my God, I just saw him today.
You did?
Yes, we were talking about acquiring the new Matisse for the museum.
What happened?
We met at his house.
Fiorentino's husband is a well-connected lawyer played by Chaz Palminteri, but we have no interest in his character other than as a murder suspect as he tries to bribe Caruso.
There's only 3 fun things in life, Paisan. Money, sex, and power.
Another suspect in Jade, no less than the governor of California, Richard Crenna, who is about to see some incriminating photographs of himself in a sex act with a call girl.
Actually, I was hoping to see you alone. Oh, I don't have any secrets from Bill. He not only knows where all the bodies are buried, he buries all of them himself.
Ultimately, Fiorentino herself becomes a suspect because of her sexual proclivities. Her former lover is shocked, just shocked.
How many were there?
Jade is pretty much claptrap in luxurious surroundings. The only character we could possibly care about is Fiorentino's, but she is lost in the story's many twists and turns, and her sex scenes are merely inserted as turn-ons, not as any part of any serious psychological examination of personality type. Jade doesn't care that much about her. Jade is about obnoxious rich people treating each other with contempt. At the end, I didn't care who done it or whether David Caruso ever found out who did.
I didn't either, but I did want to know, and the first time I saw the movie, I didn't understand how it turned out. Now, they re-edited the last reel, and I saw the entire movie again yesterday. Now, I think I could pass a test on it, but on the other hand, it turns out that there are 2 solutions to 2 different threads of crime in the movie, and the solution to one of them makes the same mistake that another screenplay by the same writer, Joe Esterhaus, made in Jagged Edge. If you remember that movie, there's a guy dead on the floor, and the camera shows him, and everybody says, oh, that's who it is, but then they all say, but who was it? And in this movie, the same thing. You really have to look and think to see who that dead body is, and then you have to think real hard to figure out how it connects with anything, and then it doesn't connect with the main murder.
But Roger, you're talking about it as a mystery. At any point, did you care who anybody cared?
No, because it's all the elements. It's all the elements, but they're not assembled in terms of any kind of story or character development that involve you.
Linda Fiorentino is a good actor. She can play a psychologically deep character. Has she been given one here? No. This movie is just showing the back of her body and sex scenes.
All kinds of problems. For example,
when it turns out who committed the main murder, how did that person get the other person to go along with it? That's an interesting question. How come Caruso never knew anything about Fiorentino's sexual problems when every other man in San Francisco
If you could answer
did?
every question, you still would have a worthless story.
A key order from Samuel L. Jackson playing Colonel Terry Childers in a scene from our next movie, Rules of Engagement. Childers and his U.S. Marines have been sent to Yemen after a protest outside the American embassy turns ugly. But most of the movie follows the court-martial of Childers. The U.S. government, afraid of international repercussions, wants to hold him solely accountable for the botched mission in which more than 80 men, women, and children died. Childers calls upon Colonel Hayes Hodges, played by Tommy Lee Jones, to be his legal counsel. 28 years earlier, during the Vietnam War, Childers saved Hodges' life. Now he needs Hodges to return the favor. In this scene, he doesn't take kindly to how the prosecution wants to repay him for his years of service.
I did what they asked me to do, Hodge.
The movie culminates in a series of very tense courtroom scenes as the prosecutor, played by Guy Pearce, examines Childers' character.
There are rules, and Marines are sworn to uphold them.
I was not going to stand by and see another Marine die just to live by those rules.
The plot of Rules of Engagement is not particularly unfamiliar. In fact, it mirrors news found in our newspapers quite frequently. There are no absolutes in this plot, and that is what I appreciated the most, its ability to raise troubling questions. The pace of the movie was quick, the action scenes were tight, and the story was compelling. Add to that strong performances by both Jackson and Jones, and you have got a good movie.
Not quite good enough to give it thumbs up. I'm real close, but not quite, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I agree with you about Jones and Jackson. They're very good, and they really sell the courtroom scenes.
Together, too.
I cared about them. I believed in them. I wondered how the movie was going to turn out, but I still felt that there were all kinds of holes in the plot. I felt that the whole subplot involving the ambassador, Ben Kingsley, was brought up and never paid off. I felt that the tape, I mean, after all, if they can show that the tape was delivered to that villain, then they should have been able to force him to say what he did with it.
It's a courtroom drama. How are they supposed to force him?
The villain himself takes the focus away. It should be whether or not Jackson is guilty, and the villain is so bad.
But that's the point of this movie, is that none of the people are truly villains. Samuel L. Jackson has done something terribly bad, but he's a good man and he thinks he's doing the right thing.
Well, he's done something bad, or maybe he hasn't.
Or maybe he hasn't. That's the thing. You can't really tell. And even the villain himself, or a supposed villain, this national security advisor, is a bad man, you think, but is he? He's trying to do his job.
I don't think the film is quite successful, but I would not say it's a bad film. I mean, the acting and the direction.
Good plot, good story, great acting.
Okay.
Okay, our next movie is the reissue of The Exorcist, which has been possessed by 11 minutes of previously unreleased footage and 6-track digital sound. The adaptation of William Peter Blatty's controversial novel caused a sensation and shattered box office records when it opened in late 1973, shocking and delighting audiences with its blasphemous language and the gruesome special effects. But some of the most effective scenes are the quiet moments that hint of darker things to come.
You been playing with it? Oh, yeah? Well, let's both.
That's the wonderful Ellen Burstyn as the divorced mother of Linda Blair's Regan, whose bedroom becomes a carnival for the devil. In addition to the much lampooned images of Regan's head swiveling and the infamous projectile vomiting, we get a first look at some other and equally disturbing effects as when Regan emerges from her bedroom.
Oh, my God.
Director William Friedkin is a master of pacing. He doesn't hammer us with shock after shock. He builds the tension and allows time for us to empathize with the priest as well as Regan and her mother. And then he pins our ears back. Just as Jaws wasn't only about seeing the shark, The Exorcist isn't only about seeing the God versus Satan showdown. Most of all, it's about the fears inside us.
Yes, it is, and it's not just a freak show, but it's about good and evil, and it really has a resonance, for me anyway, that has to do with the fact that the devil seems to be inside this girl, and these people are fighting for her soul. But, you know, this movie has the extra 11 minutes, and I think it's only in there in order to justify a theatrical release and a new video, so you have to replace the video you might already have. It's not necessary, the new footage, and in particular at the end. The original movie ends perfectly with the surviving priest getting the medal from the girl's mother and the car drives off. Now we have this new ending. He gives the medal back to her, then he goes back and talks to the detective, and the detective has this nonsensical dialogue about some hypothetical version of Wuthering Heights starring Jackie Gleason and Lucille Ball, and it's like a comedian who doesn't know when he got to his punchline. The movie is over. What are they blathering about? It's like it destroys the mood
of the whole ending of the film.
I don't think it destroys the mood at all. It's a little bit mannered, and they have this running joke throughout the movie where the detective comes up with wacky casts for movies. But, you know what, this is such a thrill ride and such a roller coaster ride that at the end, a little bit of business tacked on at the end, we're sort of getting out of our seat already. So it didn't in any way, in fact, until you mentioned it, it didn't even affect me at all. And I liked the extra scene, the weird thing of Regan coming down the stairs, some of the opening exposition. The sound is also very much improved. And this is a movie that really uses sound.
Is fine, but you know, the whole thing about
so I think it is worth revisiting with the new stuff in it.
But the whole thing about director's cuts is it was something the director has always wanted to do, but Friedkin said for 25 years that he was very happy with the movie. Now I think you're looking basically at a marketing ploy.
Well, it's still a great movie, I think.
Our next movie, Bug, is being sold as a horror movie, and it's horrifying, but don't expect gooey fun with the babe from Kiss the Girls. It's based on a play by Steppenwolf Theater's Tracy Letts about two unstable people who build a sanctuary and then bug out, literally. Ashley Judd plays a lonely divorcee in a rustic Oklahoma motel. Her phone rings night and day, but no one speaks. It could be her violent ex, played by Harry Connick Jr., or someone else might be out there. She meets a soft-spoken fellow, played by Michael Shannon, who says he's an Iraq war vet. He muses that people think he's strange. An understatement.
Sometimes, though, when you're lying in bed at night, you can feel it.
Agnes thinks that sounds crazy, but she likes his intensity. After their lovemaking, Peter sees something.
Show me. Oh, God, did you put something on that? Oh, my God.
What's certain is, beat by beat, Bug is gripping. It has that feverish compression of great theater, but director William Friedkin gets inside it, so it's never stagey. Shannon is scary but pitiful, and Ashley Judd might be the most unsung great actress in American movies. She makes you understand how she could welcome the dementia that envelops her. I thought of Abu Ghraib poster girl Lindy England, another woman sucked into a controlling boyfriend's universe. Not for every taste, but my thumbs up.
Well, you're 0 for 2 so far, my friend. I hated this movie. I think it probably might have worked as a stage production. I think it has that kind of, you know, hyper-real feel to it. But I think as a film, one of the problems I had with it, Dave, and I have many problems, is that it starts off being so realistic, and we get scenes outside of the hotel, in the bar, and we learn about the friends and the ex-con, ex-husband or current husband or whatever, the Harry Connick Jr. character, and they all intrude on this. And then all of a sudden we go off on this crazy journey with these two people that I didn't believe for 1 second that character played by Ashley Judd would fall for this madness. And then what also drove me crazy is the film wants to have it both ways, because we get the ringing phones, we get the sounds of the helicopters. Now, is that in the minds of the characters, or is there really some sort of craziness going on? So I think it cheats on every level.
Consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds.
Yeah, and good films sometimes, too. And, of course, you know, the one thing I'll give credit to Ashley Judd, she always has her Mr. Skin moment, because late in the film, they find an excuse to get her naked on top of everything else. But I just found this thing to be irritating and annoying and over the top, and I felt like I was being preached to throughout.
I will say it is certainly over the top, but isn't it exciting to see something where you could go, well, maybe they're right, maybe there's something in the air, or maybe they're delusional paranoiacs.
Yeah, well, either way, they were irritating.